You probably heard this week, San Bernardino, California declared bankruptcy just a few weeks after Stockton, California did the same thing. And as we discussed a few moments ago, Scranton, Pennsylvania police and firefighters are now getting paid minimum wage, $7.25 an hour. So is a wave of austerity about to sweep through America's big cities? If so, who's to blame and what can be done about it? I want to bring in two of our guests, Peter Navarro. He's an economist and a professor at the University of California, Irvine. And joining us from Scranton is Gary Lewis, a consultant who specializes in distressed assets. Thank you both for being here this evening. I appreciate it. Just want to run through a few quick numbers. When you look at San Bernardino, almost 12% unemployment. The Wall Street Journal reporting that 70% of homeowners in San Bernardino are underwater. They owe more on their mortgage than their home is worth. So you've got this confluence of factors. You've got reports of mismanagement of money in a number of these cities, and a lot of questions about how the finances were handled there. Professor Navarro, you say, look, bankruptcies are the tip of an iceberg for what you call failing American cities.
Yeah, Papa, 95% of the cities in America are having trouble, and bankruptcy is literally the tip. But every major city in this country, because of the economy, is having pressure now on wages, on pensions, potholes being filled, schools, police and fire. And the tragedy here, Poppy, is you can't fix this problem locally. The only thing you can do is manage a shrinking pie. And the real problem here is the macro economy. Over the last decade, our economy's only been growing at a third of the rate it did in the previous 5 decades. And so, a guy like Ron, the firefighter, making minimum wage now, hey, he can't have a job, Poppy, unless you also have manufacturing jobs generating good wages and having that income ripple through. So across America, this is an issue.
But here's the issue on top of that, and that's the fact that there is a strong argument that those jobs and that growth that we saw that would just exploded for decades is not coming back to the United States. Yes, some of that manufacturing is coming back, but it's not going to come back in the way that it did. So then what do cities do? What can be done on a national level to help these cities?
Well, what can be done on a national level? The best jobs program is trade reform with China. What the heck does China have to do with Scranton and San Bernardino? Everything. They stole our jobs. We've shut down 50,000 factories over the last 10 years when we opened trade with China. We've lost 6 million manufacturing jobs. We've got 25 million people, Poppy, in this country who are underemployed, not earning a decent wage. And the reason why is we don't make stuff anymore. We consume more than we make. And the tragedy of these cities is that they can't do anything. The only thing they can do is basically penalize people and cut their wages or cut pensions or make the bondholders take a haircut. That's the only thing they do. And bankruptcy is a tool to do that.
Let's talk, Gary. I mean, Scranton is not in bankruptcy yet. Would a bankruptcy filing really allow Scranton to pay police officers, firefighters more than minimum wage? Or is it going to obscure a bigger problem here because it's going to raise the cost of borrowing significantly? It's going to affect the muni bond market, which is going to affect investors. It's going to affect the people there.
But the city shouldn't be doing all of the borrowing it's done. We've got $100 million in total outstanding debt. We've got $55 million in authority debt that the authority has already defaulted on. The problem, and the reason that we can't pay our public servants, is because we're paying $8 to $10 million a year in basically, debt service costs. We need to get that under control. We need to restructure the debt. We need to address the pensions, which are becoming a massive problem and are another massive expense for the city. I mean, we can't simply just cut the salaries of our employees and say that saves us money. We're contractually obligated to pay them that money. They will win that lawsuit.
It's an interesting thing.
What's funny here, Poppy? It sounds like he's talking about the federal government because it's the same problem. We've got an economy that's not performing, and so we can't pay our bills, and nobody gets it. So if you're in Scranton, you think it's a Scranton problem. If you're in San Bernardino, you think it's a San Bernardino problem. But you go across America, and our cities are dying. Our cities are dying because our economy's dying, and our economy's dying because we don't make stuff anymore. We've got to get our manufacturing jobs back, and that's why we have presidential elections. I want to hear Obama, I want to hear Romney talking about how to get our manufacturing back to Scranton, back to San Bernardino, and everywhere in between.
Reality is the manufacturing jobs that this country has lost is in the millions if you look just in the last decade alone. All those aren't coming back. Absolutely. But
now, why do you say that, Poppy? Why do you say that those jobs aren't coming back? The problem we have is
because
that
I talked to the heads of the big companies, General Electric and others, that have brought some of those jobs back here, but a lot of them aren't coming back. Steve Jobs said the same thing with
This isn't something that's
Apple.
going to be fixed overnight.
General Electric
This isn't
is the
something that you can
biggest
fix
part of the
overnight. You
problem
can't
right
make
here.
jobs.
Caterpillar, they offshore to China. They make a bunch of money over there, and they take their jobs out of Schenectady. They take them out of Peoria, and they tell you that we can never get them back.
Professor, I want to give Gary the last word here. Gary, go ahead. And I just want to preface it by saying it was interesting. You know, the LA Times, the mayor of Vallejo, California, told the LA Times, Vallejo filed for bankruptcy in 2008. He told the LA Times it was a bad idea. Cost him $10 million in legal fees. Didn't cut their borrowing. Didn't cut many of their costs significantly. And he said it hurt their reputation. So that's something to think about too, right, Gary?
You know, it absolutely is, but if you look at the problem we have, we simply can't keep going the way we are. We need to do something to address the structural deficit. And creating jobs is a great idea. It's not something that happens overnight.
Right.
If we do this correctly, if we have a properly planned bankruptcy, we can reduce our debt service, we can reduce the union compensation, we can fund our pensions, we can cut the fat, and we can get the city operating. Scranton has an $86 million budget and $56 million of tax revenue. There's no reason we should have that kind of a gap. We need to do something immediately, right now, at the local level, and bankruptcy does that.
Gary, thank you. Professor Navarro, thank you. Appreciate you both coming in tonight.
Thanks so much, Poppy. Take care.
Thank you.
Well, the